Let's get ready for Monday Mortgage Minute with your hosts, Tom McNamara and Bruce Woodburn.
All right.
Hey, how are
So,
we?
happy Monday.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
I heard we had some tornadoes in your area.
We did. Right, the neighborhood right behind me over on Markham. Just had a bunch of houses collapsed, from my understanding. So,
Welcome to Florida. We get it.
That's a first for me. I haven't had hurricane or tornadoes.
I haven't had it either.
Before.
Oh, well, welcome to Monday. So listen, we got a lot of things to talk about. First thing I want to talk about is what's going on in the market. So I'm going to bring up this bond chart here. As you can see, since around January 14th, right in here, that was a big day for improvements. So we've gone better and better all the way. Now, last week was a little rocky. This was last week here. We lost a little ground, but only 16 basis points. So interest rates are improving, and they're improving at a nice pace. I think that's really good news on the horizon.
That's good, man. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we're going to see massive interest rate ups or downs this year at all. We're just going to see it relatively level, right?
I agree. Now, one thing that did happen, and we talked about this in the last segment, is we got an influx of inventory from December to January, which increased the inventory enough to where we switched from a balanced market to a buyer's market. Now, that puts buyers in a lot more control, but I'm still seeing multiple offers on houses. It's a very confusing market right now.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. I've got a couple properties that we went under contract with immediately, like in a weekend or in a week. And then I've got other ones that are sitting for, 4 months, 5 months. And I've got one I just put up last week, had like 3 showings in a week. That's pretty low, So, it's a mixed bag. I think it depends on the area, that you're trying to sell in. And then of course, what you sell it for.
If there's a lot more homes on the market, what's your advice right now? Let's take 1 minute for sellers and let's talk about 1 minute for buyers. What's your advice for sellers?
For sellers, 2 things. Make the house as absolutely presentable as possible. Paint,
number 1.
Paint, clean, right? All those kind of things. Declutter. Right. All those things, right? Make it super presentable. You don't have to spend a ton of money on renovations. Just paint was great if it needs it, clean and declutter. And then price it correctly. Don't try to get the most you possibly can. Price it underneath where the market really is, and you'll get a lot of activity.
So don't price it based on what you want for it. Price it based on what the market in that area is actually bearing.
Yeah. I mean, the 2 houses that I went under contract in the last month, both of them we listed at what I thought was the right price, and we both got full price offers because we priced it correctly. Whereas other houses that I have that aren't under contract, the seller has more of a, well, let's price it up here and then we'll negotiate now. Well, you don't even get an offer.
So what are the downsides to sitting on the market that long then?
It's like the longer something sits on the market, the more you wonder what's wrong with it. So it's like when a property's sitting on the market for 90 days, 120 days, in people's minds, there's something wrong with it because it shouldn't be sitting there that long. And so, or they recognize that, well, I'm going to be able to get a deal because they're going to get desperate. And then they go in and lowball, right?
Come in at the offer price that was suggested in the first place. Maybe.
Yeah.
All right. What advice do you have for buyers then?
For buyers, obviously the standard, right? Always make sure you're pre-approved. Get an understanding of what the market's like. Don't worry about list price so much because you can always have your agent do a CMA on the property, a competitive market analysis or comparative market analysis to tell you what the property really should be worth. I do that before I make any offers. And so if I see that it should be worth, 10 grand less than they have it listed for, then that's what we make the offer on. And I supply that CMA to the listing agent saying, hey, this is what I came up with. Now, sometimes they come back and say, hey, this is what I came up with. And then we can go back and forth. Other times they use that to show the seller, you better sell at this price.
Right. So I see, since there's an abundance of inventory, I think it's short-lived, because as soon as we get into spring season, that's when everybody's going to jump in. I actually see a small window of opportunity for buyers right now to jump in. Interest rates have improved. No, they're not in the fives yet, folks, but they're still better than they were, a lot better than they were. We've gained 250 basis points on the bond market. And to put that in perspective, that's 2.5 points that you don't have to pay. So whatever loan you're looking at, if it would have been 2.5 points 3.5 weeks ago, would be now 0.
Okay. So to be clear, right, because a lot of people don't know what points are. So that's
1% of your loan amount
that you pay to originate the loan, right? So you may still be paying the same interest rate, 6.5, 6 3/4, whatever, but you didn't.
For every $100,000, it saved
money.
you $2,500.
There you go. Right. So, and that's pretty significant, because I remember seeing some loans recently where people were paying, $7,000, $10,000, $12,000 worth of
very
points.
common right now, Tom, because of compression in the market. We're seeing a lot of people that are paying points where otherwise they wouldn't have paid points, because they don't think that interest rates are going to drop fast enough. That brings me into another subject: affordability. Everybody's dealing with it. We have a problem with homeowners insurance. Right now, there seems to be an abundance of foreclosures and short sales hitting the market, which I don't understand, because so many people are sitting on equity in their property. Why would somebody let their home go to short sale or foreclosure when they're sitting on equity? And what could they do to avoid that?
So, Bruce, you know that I also dabble in flips and rental real estate.
I think you're more than a dabbler,
right? Yeah. So, what I found is most of the time people that become into a financial situation and they're not making their mortgage payments, not keeping up with things. They're also not doing maintenance on the house, right? So things deteriorate. And then they either do one of two things for the most part. They either bury their head in the sand like an ostrich, ignore the problem, praying or hoping that Uncle Jimmy's going to come through with the money they owe him or whatever.
And it never happens.
And that usually doesn't happen. Or they attempt to sell it themselves and try to be cheap, and they list it for way over what they should be, getting for it. And then they don't know how to deal with the people coming in. And so they end up not selling it. Right. And then, at some point the bank, goes ahead and starts actual foreclosure. And once that's started, your property has a stigma on it. Right. When people approach me for, hey, can I get a foreclosure property? I know what they mean. They don't mean a perfect property cheap. They mean, I understand it's going to be junk. Help me get it, So, you don't want to get that stigma. You want to have, if you're in some trouble and you can't figure out a way out of it, sell.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'm going to suggest is that call a professional that can help you. Tom and I are both here. Let's look at the situation. If you can avoid having any late payments on anything, it might allow you to refinance or to be able to consolidate debt. And if you can't do that, then there's no point in having a foreclosure on your record, because if you've got equity in the property, you could walk away with cash, where if you short sale it, the bank's going to get most of your money, or you foreclose on it, you're not going to get anything back from it. So you may have an opportunity to be able to at least maybe level your playing field, maybe solve some of your issues with debts, because you are sitting on equity. So call Tom and I. We will honestly look at that and tell you the right thing to do to protect yourself, so that you don't have to have a foreclosure 100%. Or short sale.
I would much rather help somebody sell their property and get the most they can than buy it from them, down the road for.
And I've seen you do that. You're like, yeah, I'll buy it from you, but why don't you just let me sell it? I'll get you more money for it.
Do that all the time. Do that all the time. Yep. So, another thing that's interesting, Bruce, I I don't know that we touched on this before, but you know, a lot of people are I'll use the word inheriting, right? So they're gaining property from a loved one. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand how that works. I actually have a young lady that I'm talking to about helping her sell a property that she inherited from her mom. Well, you know what they did was before mom passed away, mom quit claimed it.
Okay.
That's a huge mistake. Mom needed to pass away so that she could inherit the property at a stepped up basis. She now owns the property for nothing, right? She owns the property for what mom paid for it way back in the 70s, right? So now when she goes to sell it, she's going to have this massive capital gain in a property that she did not live in, right? Whereas she could have gotten it at a stepped up basis, sold it and paid almost no tax whatsoever.
So true.
And so, you know, and obviously that's not my place to advise people on that, but I understand how it works. And my advice
attorneys would advise them of that too, but they don't always
they didn't approach an attorney. Well, they didn't approach an attorney. They did it on their own because they oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to do this and avoid, you know, whatever they thought.
Well, they thought they were going to avoid probate, which they may have done it, but they just cost themselves maybe $50,000 in taxable consequences.
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you a tip. This is not legal advice because I'm not a lawyer, but in most cases, somebody like that doesn't have a lot of other assets, the best thing that they can do is do what's called a ladybird deed, which is essentially you put your name on the deed, but only after the owner passes away. It's a special deed. You want to get a lawyer to write it up, and then you just file it with the county. It'll cost you under $500 to get it all done. And then when the owner passes away, you literally only have to go down to the county with the death certificate, file it, and it's yours.
And then you don't have to worry about the capital gains from a property that you got for no money, and now you're going to turn around and sell it and make a gob of money on it.
That's exactly right. So, you know, again, that's not legal advice. I can't give legal advice nor tax advice, but I tell people, like, go talk to an attorney. I'll give you a
couple of attorneys local that'll take great care of you. They do it every day.
So I think, you know, that's one thing that people like that are in the foreclosure process, they're afraid, right? And so they don't like to reach out for help. So I always encourage people, reach out for help. I will answer questions. I don't charge to answer questions. I talk to people all the time and give out free advice and free guidance, right? It's just part of the
right.
deal.
So one last bit of advice. I'm holding a grand opening for Trinity Family Builders in Eustis at Pine Meadows Reserve on 44. I'm going to go ahead and have Jeanette put the address up on the screen so you've got it. It's on this Thursday between 4 and 6, grand opening. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a drawing for a real estate agent that you come to that. I'll do a drawing, and if you win the drawing, I will interview on my radio show. I will post you on my podcast, on 3 podcasts and my YouTube channel and 2 radio shows. You can't go wrong. This Thursday, be there, get in the drawing, and you could win that. If anything will boost your business, that will. Tom, I got to run.
You know what? It absolutely does, man. Bruce, you have yourself a great week.
You do the same. Good luck with those tornadoes.
Thanks, man. Stay safe.